Alright, here we've got a box in from Midway, USA. There's nothing in it anymore, but it is a box of once fired reloading brass, 7.62 by 51 NATO grade 3. And it was a box full of these rounds here. I'll get this out of the way. And it's 500 rounds of military brass that I'm going to end up reloading into 308. Grade 3 means that it's been cleaned, but it hasn't been deprimed, and there could be some slight damage or some other pieces of brass mixed into it. And for the most part, I never went through and counted how many pieces are in there. I know some people do that, and it tends to be pretty close. I will say that there was one piece of brass so far. I haven't decapped it all, but there was one piece of brass with a Burdan primer that has the 2 flash holes that can't be reloaded, so I had to get rid of that. There was also this 30-06 case, and there was a 223 case or a 5.56 case in there as well, so I'll set those aside. I don't reload 30-06 at this point anyway, but I'll just set those aside. I wanted to show a couple things about the brass. This one here is all Lake City. It was the majority of it, which is kind of nice to have at least a good batch of it being one type. This one is mostly Western Cartridge Company. There's also a couple pieces of Remington brass, a fair bit of IVI, which is a Canadian-made brass in Montreal, Quebec. Or maybe not Montreal, but it's in Quebec, in that area. It's fairly dirty, inside especially. I think some of these have been sitting for a while, so there's a little bit of surface corrosion, and they need to be cleaned up before we reload, but it's going to be, I think we'll get 90, 98, 99% of it into usable brass. One interesting thing is some of the brass is quite old. I don't know if we can see that or not, but this is a piece of Lake City brass. If I get it just right. And the head stamp on it is 1968. And there is a fair bit in the 60s and the 70s. Most of it is newer than 2000, but just kind of neat that it's in there. I'm sure it was fired recently, but just old stock ammunition. This one I've decapped. And let's see if we can get some light in here and see in the primer pocket. Kind of hard to see. It's got corrosion in it. It's just surface corrosion, but it's to be what to expect. So we'll get that all cleaned out as well. And this one just shows the case neck is kind of crunched up. A fair number of them are like that, but that'll get straightened out when we resize the brass. I'll also want to trim this brass. I have noticed that there is variations in the length, but if we trim them with the necks like this, once we resize it, we're not going to have a nice consistent neck opening. So my plan is to decap them all, swage that primer pocket. We need to get rid of the military crimp that's in there so that we can reload standard boxer primers. Tumble the brass, get it all cleaned up real nice. I'm going to be wet tumbling, and then resize it, send it through the case trimmer, and then we'll be ready to load them up. And I think we'll have some really nice brass at that point. So I'll just go over the different steps that are going to be involved in processing this military brass. This box I have already decapped and swaged the primer pockets, but we'll go through just a few of the Lake City brass, and then after that we'll send it through the tumbler. Alright, we're going to decap some brass, and for that we're using this Lee single stage press. Lee's universal decapping die. I like to have a standalone system, press system, just for processing military brass or any single stage operations that I need to do completely separate from progressive press, so that it can be set up just for running ammo, whatever caliber it is, and I can do all my single stage work on this little press. It's an affordable press. It's not heavy duty by any means, but for what I'm using it for, it's actually perfect, and I really like it. So, just run these through. Quick look here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but pop the primer out. These are all decapped. This is the CH4D swaging kit. It's one of the better ones, I believe. There's a few different options for doing swaging, but I think that this is probably one of the quicker and more affordable ways of doing it. It doesn't actually remove any material from the case. It doesn't cut that swage out. It just presses it out of the way, so you're not removing material from the case. I like it. It works really well and it's fast. I do have another reloading video that goes into all this a little in more detail, if you want to see more. But anyway, we stick it in the top. I've got a Lee #2 shell holder here, and you just press it, and hardly any force, and it just presses that crimp. I like to do as much as I can to the brass before tumbling it, so that when it comes out of the tumbler, it's almost ready to go like new brass. Now, like I've said earlier, we will need to come back and resize the necks on these before we can trim them, but I might even send this brass through the tumbler twice. Just do a quick tumble as a final step after trimming and sizing, and then it will be just like new brass. So that's the swaging. These 10 rounds are done. They're in the same state as these ones here, and we're ready to tumble this brass. So here we have the 500 pieces of brass. The ones on the left, like I said, have already been processed. They're decapped and swaged. This is the batch that I'm going to send through the tumbler and clean up. This is on the right here is all the Lake City brass that I haven't gotten around to. It still has primers in it, but as you can see, they are not the cleanest pieces of brass, so it'll be a nice experiment to get it cleaned up in the tumbler. Here's everything we're going to be using to tumble this brass. I'm using the Frankfurt Arsenal wet rotary tumbler. The motor base is sitting somewhere separate, but this is the tumbling drum. This is the 5-pound stainless steel media that comes with it. I'm going to be doing, I think that's about 250 to 300 rounds of brass. I'm going to be adding some lemon shine for hard water deposits, a little bit of Dawn, and we're going to run it for 3 hours to really try and clean this up as best as possible. Let's load this up. we're going to fill this thing up. Now we want to add our lemmy shine. Add just a Alright. A few drops of Dawn. It's just the Dawn Original. There we go. Just wet that so that the gas gets wet. Seal a little bit better. That one. It's ready to go on tumbling base. Alright, we're all loaded up. Got our brass in there and our stainless steel pins. We've got our lemmy shine and Dawn detergent. So I'm going to just set this for 3 hours and run it the whole time. Alright, the brass is done tumbling. Here it is. Now, this is my attempt to try and rinse it out without losing all the pins and brass. This tumbler comes with this insert which keeps the brass in, but all the pins and the water come out. Right now I don't necessarily want to lose everything. I just want to dump out all the water, the dirty water, and then rinse it out with clean water. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. This is just a window screen that I've doubled up and stuck in here, so we'll see if it works. Some nasty water. Well, I see one pin that made it through, but that's pretty good. That's some pretty dirty stuff. I'm sure my wife would love to see me dumping this in her bathtub. Alright, let's take this off and try and get our pins out. Grab that one that snuck through. Alright, put this back in. Another fill. Well, I am trying this without purchasing a media separator. I can tell right away that there's big advantages to having one. So I think that's probably going to go on the list now. But we have a lot of the pins out. There's the bucket there. That's most of the stainless pins. So I mean, this is working. I know there's still a lot of pins in here. Let's take a look at this brass. I'm losing pins everywhere. That brass is super clean. I mean, that's awesome. Alright. Alright, I'm going to start emptying this brass out into this baking tray. Because that's where I'm going to dry them in the oven. 250 degrees for about 10 minutes should dry them out. And I'm going to be looking for any leftover pins. Just kind of try and grab them as I go. And this brass is looking really nice. Do a quick comparison before and after, and that's fairly incredible. Alright, that's all of it. There is one 45 ACP case in here. That is on purpose. I need that for something else. But basically it looks really good. That was the full 3-hour tumble. So we'll stick this in the oven, dry it out, and then any little pins that are left over in the cases should fall out pretty easily. A couple in there. I'll have to inspect each one before we go any further. But it's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. Alright, here we've got our brass. It's out of the oven. It was in there for 10 minutes at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Right now, I'm just checking to make sure that all the little stainless steel pins are out. So I'm taking each piece and just kind of knocking it, having a quick look. And just make sure that we're not going to be reloading these with any of the pins in there. The brass is looking great. The pins can get stuck in the flash hole. I'm also looking at that. If 2 pins get wedged in there, you gotta just kind of poke them out. Well, here I've got it all separated. All the pins are cleaned out of this tumbled brass. I'm just putting a side by side at this point just to see how much cleaner these cases are. This is the Lake City brass. It was all in the same, came in the same box as this stuff, and look, they both look the same before tumbling, but these have just come out so nice and clean. Primer pockets are clean. Let's see if we can have a look at these. See the difference in the primer pocket. And you probably won't be able to see inside very well. but they're really clean inside. I mean, there's nothing. It looks almost as nice as the outside of the case. But Tumbling did a really nice job. So now that we have this all cleaned up, I want to go and straighten out these case necks and resize the brass. So I'll run them through the Dillon press, full length resize, and then we'll have all the cases cleaned up and sized appropriately, and then we can put them in the case trimmer and get them all cut down to the same length. And then at that point they'll be ready to load. Alright, I've got 24 cases here. I separated out just Western Cartridge Company cases just to keep it consistent, and I'm just going to lube these up. Using Hornady one-shot case lube. Works really well. Alright, and then we're going to resize it. Press. Alright, I've got my full-length sizing die set up. I've used my 308 Winchester head spacing gauge to set the height of the die to get the perfect head space for my rifle. So all we need to do now is start loading up the brass, and I've taken the primer out and I've deactivated the primer feed so that it's not going to be trying to put a primer in every time we size one of these. There we go. That is a nice round neck, and headspace should be perfect. And you know what, we can throw it in here and check it. Yeah, that's just perfect. Alright, there's our brass. It's all resized, and now we can trim them all to length. Alright, we're ready to trim these cases. I'm going to be using my Lyman Universal Case Trimmer. It works really, really well. It's fast, and it does a really precise job. I've already got it set up. Our case length that we're going for is 2.005 inches. So all we do is stick the case in here. I like to align it like that and then just lock it down and just turn it until it gets easy to turn like that. Pull it out. Now we need to, you can see it's trimmed up nice. We need to deburr the inside. So this is the Lyman deburring tool, and it works on calibers from 17 to 45, I believe. And just lightly, just enough to get the burr off the inside, and then on the outside as well. I'll do this on camera. Just light, like that, so that trimmed up, and now we can confirm our length. As long as we're within a couple thou of that. Yeah, we're half a thou under, which is not a big deal at all. I'm going to call that good. Alright, we'll keep them rolling. These are actually a fair bit coming off them. No, that one didn't take that much off at all. So it's a good thing we're doing it, because we want our cases to be exactly the same length. And so those first two were fairly long, and that one was quite a bit shorter. So now they're all going to be the same length, which is what we want. Well, that's pretty much it for processing military brass. Taking once fired NATO 7.62 by 51mm cartridges and turning them into basically identical, clean 308 brass. In front of us we have one of the NATO pieces of brass. This is how it came, and here's 20 of the pieces of brass that we processed through, and they're identical in dimension and cleanliness, and they're almost as good as new. They're ready to be loaded and used again. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please comment, and I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.